Hi friends, my name is Vanessa Fernandez and this is an episode of Coaching Conversations. And today we're going to talk about therapy and Enneagram work and how the two go together and some things to watch out for. During this past year with COVID, more people went to therapy and found therapists, and new people started therapy this year than ever before. I have several therapist friends and they are bananas busy with all of the new clients. And I find that to be such a beautiful thing because therapy has been so instrumental in my healing process. And I think everyone should be in therapy and have a therapist regardless. So here's the tricky thing though. As I was talking with one of my good friends, Michael Shahan, who is my favorite Enneagram informed therapist, we were talking about ways that our Enneagram type can influence some of the motivations for why we show up in therapy, and also can affect some of the ways we can internally sort of distort therapy so that it becomes actually a way of pushing us further into excess in our type or further into bondage rather than helping us find freedom. Because here's the thing, our ego is so freaking sneaky, and it really can take even a good intention of going to therapy, of getting help, and can twist it and turn it into something that keeps us further in bondage. Meanwhile, we're feeling really good about ourselves for making it to therapy, and the therapy may not be as liberating as we would like it to be. So I'm going to go through each of the 9 types and talk through some thoughts and considerations. Before I do this though, this particular video and this discussion is going to be very exposing for every type. What I'm doing here is showing you where your ego is going to try and trick you and keep you in bondage. And so this may be very uncomfortable. And I'm only saying that because it was uncomfortable for me to see ego, to see the way that your defense mechanisms are showing up, even when you're trying to do something good, like go to therapy. What I want for you and what I hope for you is that this video does not become another one of those, the Enneagram is telling me what's wrong with me, and it piles discouragement and piles onto shame or just feeling really like, I just don't want to know all the things that are wrong with me all the time. That's not what I am intending for this series to do. What I'm intending for this series to do is for it to reveal the shape of your ego so that you can see it and be free from it. The Enneagram should not be something that makes you feel like, now I just know all the things that are wrong with me. In fact, it should be a map to help you find freedom. All that we're doing when we see Enneagram, when we get called out or we see Enneagram posts that make us feel triggered or attacked. I get so many messages that say, attacked, you've attacked me with this. The intent though is not any sort of attack. The intent is shining a light on what is already there, what you're already living in, what your ego is already doing for you and has been doing for years. So there's no new information here. There's no new, things that are coming out. We're just shining a light on what is already happening. And as that revelation comes, the hope is that we can use that information to further our growth, not to wallow in a place of another thing that's wrong with me. This sucks. No, let's use it. That's why this is the Enneagram workshop. Let's get to work, taking that information and realizing that we don't need those ego defense mechanisms anymore. That's the best, most exciting, most terrifying place to be in your Enneagram work, is when you see your defense mechanisms and you realize, I don't need you anymore. What would it be like if I didn't engage in those ego defense mechanisms? What would it be like if I could go to therapy? Let's just start in here. What would it be like for a type 1 if I go to therapy, not because I'm addicted to self-improvement, and I always need to be better, and I need therapy to fix me? That's the ego defense mechanism, right? That's how ones can take therapy and turn it into something that keeps them stuck in their addictive behaviors. And that addictive behavior of always needing to self-improve stems from a lie that you are irredeemably flawed, type 1s, and you're not. When you can let go of the lie that you're irredeemably flawed and you can say, that's a lie. I am intrinsically worthy and I am good in and of myself. When you let go of that lie, then you no longer have an addiction to self-improvement. And then you can go to therapy, not needing to self-improve, but because you know that you are enough and you are worthy of better understanding yourself and understanding how to love yourself to the place of wholeness and healing. So it's going because you are already good enough rather than going to become good enough for type 1s. And how freeing is that? How liberating is that if you're a type 1 to know that you are enough? So now go and be healed and invest in yourself and invest in your transformation from a place of already good, not needing to be good. And then for type 2s, imagine what it would be like to go to therapy, not because you're trying to understand all of the people in your life and all of the relationships in your life and trying to fix those relationships, trying to know what to say to get that person to love you, or try to know what to say to fix how that person feels about you. Because what that is, that's the ego defense mechanism. The ego defense mechanism is coming from a lie, type 2s, that says your personal health is dependent on the health of your relationships. Who you are is what other people think of you. And that's a lie. That's not true. Type 2's who you are is loved and precious and fully human in all of your neediness and in all of your generosity. Both belong. And so you're not going to therapy to try and fix your relationships. You're going to therapy because you are worthy of healing. Because you, apart from any of your relationships, are precious and loved and valuable. And so you can go to therapy and you can focus on yourself. And you don't have to focus on others, and you don't have to be addicted to fixing all of your relationships, because you can know that even if your relationships may have some tension and some conflict, you can still be okay. Your health is not dependent on the health of your relationships. That's freedom, my friends. That is freedom. So maybe called out, but let me tell you, let that lead you on a journey to freedom. All right, type 3s. Type 3s, you can be free from having to go to therapy as a way of being the best you that you can be. That's the ego defense mechanism. I'm going to be the best me that I can be, and going to therapy is my way of self-improvement, not in the way of the type 1s, but in a way of the type 3s of, man, I got to be the best. I got to have my mental health on top. I got to have my physical health on top. I'm just going to be operating on all cylinders. And that comes from a lie that in order to have worth, you have to be successful. And if I don't have control, 3s, we love to have control. Pay attention to what you want to have control over, type 3s. If I have control over my mental health, then I can be more successful and I can be the best me I can be, right? All of that is coming from ego. All of that is coming from, I'm not enough just in and of myself. I'm not enough if I'm a mess. I'm not enough if I don't have control over my emotions and over my feelings. You know what, 3s? Sometimes that's okay. Your worth isn't dependent on that. Your worth is not dependent on how successfully you navigate through life. So now you can go to therapy simply to be and to heal and to practice vulnerability, because you are already enough. There's no need to prove it. There's no need to hustle to get it. You're already enough. All right, type 4s. What if you didn't have to go to therapy in order to understand yourself better and sit in your feelings and look at your brokenness? That's kind of the ego defense of the 4. I'm going to wrap myself up in my brokenness and my emotions and identify with that as my primary identity. And going to therapy, if you're trying to find things that are wrong with you, it's like going to the doctor. They're always going to run a test and they're going to find something wrong that needs some sort of fixing. And for 4s, that can feel very therapeutic, but in an ego way, where it just strokes your ego to say, yes, I am broken. Yes, I am a mess. Yes, I am terrible. Yes, I will never be whole. I will never be healthy. I will never be happy, because look at all this that's wrong with me. And let me sit with my therapist and just pull up emotion after emotion, brokenness after brokenness. And your gift, type 4s, is your ability to sit in that emotion. But it becomes bondage when that's all you are. It becomes bondage when you never have hope that you can be happy. It becomes bondage when it feels like your brokenness is what defines you instead of your wholeness. Type 4s can go to the depths of emotions because they are so whole, not because they are so broken. And so 4s, when you're free from that ego need, when you let go of the lie that your brokenness is your identity, and you stand in the truth that you can find happiness and healing, then you go to therapy with hope. You go to therapy with an openness to letting yourself be healed. And this is so tricky because oftentimes 4s, there's a real fear that if I heal, then who even am I? And there can be a subconscious resisting of healing. Don't try to help me. Don't try to make me feel better. Don't try to heal me. Because if I'm not broken and sad and melancholy and in myself and never going to work out for me and this suffering soul, if I let go of that identity, then who even am I? So the invitation that the Enneagram gives us is to let go of our old self and trust that there actually is a true self that is more beautiful, more resilient, more powerful than any false self-construct that we've held on to. But we've held on to it so long, it's all we know. And it's very scary to let go of that, I will admit. But I just invite you to consider what freedom would feel like if you didn't have to hold on to that. And you could step into joy and wholeness and not have to be the broken one. What would that feel like? What kind of freedom would that bring? Okay, type 5s. What would it be like if you went to therapy not to have to try and figure it all out? So the defense mechanism for 5s is I need to figure this all out. I need to figure out so I can control. I need to figure out why I'm feeling this way. It doesn't logically make sense, so I don't allow it in my life, but I don't understand relationships. I don't understand myself because it doesn't fit in my logical paradigm. And so 5s hungry for information and will treat therapy as a way to get information. Now, listen, as with all of the types that I've gone through so far, therapy is all of these things. It is a way to self-improve. It is a way to understand our relationships and how to show up better. It is a way to become healthy. It is a way to explore our inner working and our brokenness. It is a way to get information on who we are. Yes, 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 and yes. However, when that leads us further into our ego defense mechanisms is what we just have to pay attention to. None of it is wrong in and of itself. Is this playing into my ego defense mechanism and keeping me further in bondage? Or can I let go of that, even though those are good things, because maybe there's more for me over here? That's growth and freedom. Okay, so none of these are wrong. It's just the way our ego likes to hook us in to further going deeper into our type rather than finding freedom. So 5s, consider the lie that competence is what keeps me safe and information is what gives me competence. That's the lie that 5s believe. The truth is, you are safe and held by something greater than just yourself. And competence can come through information. It can also come through engaging and living. So you can sit and read, or you can go out and do. Both give you competence. And when 5s limit competence down to only something that I get from a book, from information, from a workshop, from a therapy session, and it keeps you from actually going out and doing, then you limit yourself down to a half range of competence. And that's what keeps 5s frustrated. That's what keeps 5s feeling like I don't feel like I have full knowing. And if I don't have full knowing, I'm not safe. And the cycle perpetuates. So 5, what would it be like if you had freedom? You didn't have to go to therapy in order to understand logically and therefore control, but you allowed yourself to open up and feel safe in feeling your feelings. I'm not a feelings person. I don't like feeling my feelings. I'm not a 5, but I can resonate with like the internal tension that you probably felt if you were a 5 when I just said that. You can be safe in your feelings. You can feel your feelings and let them have expression. And that feels really scary for 5s, but guess what? One of the beautiful things with therapy is you have someone there whose job is to create an environment of safety so that you can let out some of those emotions and be met with someone who will affirm and hold space and stand with and be that safety net as you explore, what would it be like if I surrendered and I actually let myself feel these feelings? What would it be like if I actually opened up to my therapist and I actually, God forbid, cried or got angry or felt vulnerable, right? Therapy is not just a place to learn, it's a place to experience, opening yourself up and being met with that safety that maybe others haven't given you. That in and of itself is part of the healing of therapy. So 5s, as you let that lie fall away and as you let that ego defense mechanism fall away, then therapy doesn't become another way for you to go deeper into your ego. It becomes a way to get freedom. And that's exciting. All right, type 6s, what if therapy was not a place where you had an expert who helped you make decisions on things in your life that feel confusing? So 6s have that's a defense mechanism of 6s. I'm going to look to the expert. I'm going to look to my community. I'm going to look to people around me to help me think productively, to help me feel like I have some sort of authority to follow, some sort of expert to inform me. And when 6s do that, it's because the lie is I can't trust myself. I can't trust my own inner knowing. I can't trust my own gut. And so I think and I overthink and I double think and I travel back and I think through it again and I ask an expert and then I read an article and then I find some other information. And all that does though is that's your ego defense mechanism that says if I get myself into a state of anxiety, if I get myself relying on the experts of others, then somehow I will be able to outrun my fear. Somehow I'll be able to outrun that unrest that I feel. So when 6s trust themselves and settle in and say, I can use my gift of seeing. 6s see, they see everything. They see what could come in the future. They see what might happen if this goes there. They see that that person knows more than they do and maybe they should ask them for advice. They see it all. And when 6s are grounded, then that seeing produces confidence rather than anxiety. And so 6s, are you trying to use therapy as a way of outsourcing your thinking and your thoughts so that you don't have to trust yourself? The growth work is learning to trust yourself, your own inner knowing. And a good therapist will return you back and ask you to reference, what are you feeling? What do you know? What are you confident of? Where is that lack of confidence coming from? Right? A therapist is not meant to be an expert to tell us how to live our lives. That only plays deeper into your ego defense mechanisms. All right, type 7s. Type 7s, when you see therapy as one option of many, it is one option of many. Again, like I said, all of these things that we try to do are valid and good and fine until they lead us into our ego defense mechanism. So 7's ego defense mechanism is, I have all the options and I don't rely or rest or commit fully to any one of them because I'm afraid, because I don't fully trust, because I don't think that any one of them will be enough for me, and I fear that I may be too much for any one of them. If I sit and commit and come every week to my therapist and don't have also a spiritual director on the side and a crystals thing over here and a Reiki thing over there and a self-development workshop over there and and I really, and again, it's not wrong to have other things, but what I want you to ask yourself, 7, is why the compulsion to have so many options and never fully commit to one? Because that's coming from a lie. That I can't stop, I can't rest, I can't rely, I won't be satisfied, I won't be taken care of. So when you can let that lie fall away is when you can really sit and say, you know what, I'm gonna commit to a full year every week with this therapist. And I'm gonna use this not as an option of many that I flitter in and out of because I don't fully trust that it's enough for me or that I will be too much for it. And I say, I'm not too much. I can sit with this therapist even though I know I'm a lot. And I'm going to trust that this relationship and this stability is a move towards growth rather than moving into my ego defense mechanisms. So that's my challenge for you 7s. Okay, 8s. 8s, what would it be like if you weren't using therapy as another means of trying to gain control over your life? So 8's defense mechanism is control. If I have the power to control both how I am perceived how others interact with me, how I interact with myself. I don't like my weaknesses. I don't like my vulnerabilities. I don't like my wounds. I will master them. I will control them. I will have power over any of my weaknesses or any of my wounds. I mean, we go to therapy because we realize I got some wounds. And if I don't heal, I'm going to bleed on people who haven't cut me. and that's like the life story of 8s, right? I have been wounded and I start bleeding on people who never cut me, who never hurt me, and I'm hurting them. And I got to figure this out. I have to get control over my life. And therapy is another way of me getting control. And again, therapy is a great way of helping us control behaviors, control thoughts, be more mindful. So yes, but do you see how that plays into the lie that 8s have, that if I'm not in control, I will be taken advantage of. If I'm not in control, I will be hurt. And so when 8s can surrender that need for control, then they can walk into therapy and not have to control even the therapy session, but let the therapist ask the questions. And even if the questions make you uncomfortable, open up to the process. Sometimes 8s, even in therapy, are trying to control the therapist and trying to control the session and will only share what they want to share and won't really be open. And all of that, now listen, I'm a control freak, so all of this is hitting hard for me too, but all of that is simply a further going into the defense mechanisms of the 8 rather than allowing. Allowing is the opposite of controlling. Allowing yourself to be seen, allowing yourself to really open up, allowing yourself to be wrong. 8s, I know you don't like that, but allowing yourself to be wrong, allowing yourself to open up to new information, to new experiences, because there's a trust that you don't have to be in control all the time and you'll still be safe. So when you can do that, then the defense mechanisms are not keeping you in bondage and you can go to therapy with freedom. Okay, type 9s. 9s, what would it be like if you went to therapy not for others, but for yourself? Oftentimes I find, the defense mechanisms for 9s is everything I do is a reaction to someone else. So if someone else feels like they're a little upset, I react and I shift to try and accommodate, being accommodating to others, taking up less space so others can take up more space. So even in therapy, 9s can go because they feel like someone else wants them to, or someone else needs them to, or they need to learn how to make themselves smaller, or they need to learn how to sand off the sharp edges and just become this nice, round, soft little ball that never pokes anyone or hurts anyone. And that just plays more into the ego defense mechanisms. Sand off all those rough edges so you never hurt anyone, because you're not allowed to hurt anyone. Because if you create any kind of conflict, that relationship will be broken. So at all costs, do not create conflict. And so I think a lot of times there is a good reason to go to therapy to say, I've got some rough edges and they're hurting people in my life and I want to learn why I'm doing it and I want to help to maybe not hurt people in my life so much. That's a valid and healthy reason to go to therapy. But be careful, 9s, if that's your only reason. Because you know what? Therapy can also be a wonderful place to learn how to take up more space. Therapy can be an awesome place to learn how to stand in your own worth and power. And therapy can be an awesome place to feel and experience that you matter and you deserve to be here just for you. Even if no one else wanted you to be here, even if it doesn't help anyone else, just for you, it's worth it to come to therapy for your own healing. Not even to sand off rough edges, just because you're a human and you matter. That's such a healing message. All right, so those are the ways that we can try and take therapy and pull it into our ego defense mechanisms. And again, please, if you felt called out by this, well, that's my job. But also, please don't spiral into any sort of shame or any sort of discouragement, because this is just the beginning. This is the part now where you get to start getting curious and figuring out, how do I let that fear go? This is where it gets fun. How do I let that fear go so the defense mechanism isn't keeping me stuck? If you are interested in doing coaching with me, I have coaching programs happening here in 2021 that I am thrilled about. There's a link in this the comments here on YouTube that you can find out more about the programs that I have and the ways that we can do this work together. Because let me tell you, those defense mechanisms are so tricky. If I didn't have coaches, if I didn't have therapists, if I didn't have people in my life saying, hey Vanessa, hey type 3, are you trying to be the healthiest you can be? Because you don't need to, because we love you just the way you are. And all of a sudden I'm like, I didn't even see it. So get someone in your life, a coach, a therapist, a counselor, a good friend, to help you see and then let go of those defense mechanisms, because you don't need them anymore. We're after freedom here. Thanks for listening. Bye, guys.